All right, so we're just kind of hanging out in the woods today. I've got two big fir trees back here that the beetles have gotten into. Finally, this one on the left just is completely dead this year. The one on the right still got a little bit of green on it, but it's going out quickly. So I'm gonna go in here, take both of these trees out, and then we'll mill up some lumber, cut the tops up for firewood. So the one on the left with the red needles here, you can see it's got a pretty hard lean going off this way, which is great. That's the way I kind of want it to fall downhill, but I'm going to direct it more this way so that I can get hooked onto the top of it with the tractor and kind of drag it out this way. So there's these two live fir trees I'm going to have to make it go between, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. That'll be fun. I like dropping big trees. So coming up to this tree here, there's a couple of things I'm noticing. First off, it's got a really nice lean in the general direction I want it to fall, so that's going to be very useful. And the second thing is it is very thick in here. And so you always, anytime you're cutting a tree like this, you always want a path to get out of the way in case something goes wrong. This is a pretty clear example of, I know exactly where this tree is going to go, but that's not always the case. You know, sometimes you're cutting a tree with a back lean and you need to push it a certain way. Sometimes you're cutting trees with heart rod, and when you're doing stuff like that, there's always the chance that things can go wrong. And so first thing I'm going to do is just clear out some of this brush so that if something happens, I can get out of there and not get tangled up. So a couple of things you always want to have with you cutting trees like this: an axe, couple of wedges. I like these polymer or plastic wedges because you know, if you dig into them with a saw, you're not going to mess up your blade. Some sawing chaps are nice. I've got some hearing protection, glasses, and then got some gloves in my back pocket, which are nice. And then of course a good sharp saw. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do on this tree is just look at it and see which way it's naturally gonna fall. This one's very obvious, got a real heavy lean downhill in the direction I want to fall it, so that's perfect. Now what I'm gonna do is make a face cut, which is gonna control the direction of fall. This tree is falling kind of straight downhill, but I want it to go to the left a little bit. And so I'm going to take a 45-degree wedge out of the side of the tree where I want it to fall, facing in the direction I want it to fall. There's a couple of things you can do to help with that. Most good chainsaws anyway, are gonna have little lines on them right here. That's perpendicular to the blade. And so if you line up that line with the direction you want to cut, as long as you're not tilted one way or another, that's the way your face cut's gonna be. So once I get my face cut in there, I'll just move to the back and line my saw up with the V on that wedge and just cut straight in, trying to parallel that face cut as best I can. And that's gonna leave a hinge for this tree to ride down to the ground. So the face cut's made, it's lined up in the direction that I want to cut it. Came out pretty good. I overcut just a little bit back here, but it's not more than about a ½ inch or so. It's not bad. Now I'll just set my saw so it's parallel with this. Come in from the back and this thing's gonna right over where we want it. So you can see this wedge of wood that was left. That's important because if it's attached all the way across, it can't go side to side. It can only go that way towards the opening in the face. All right, let's drag that thing out of here and make some wood.
Aldo Leopold once said that there's two spiritual dangers in not owning a farm. One is the danger of supposing that breakfast comes from the grocery, and the other that heat comes from the furnace. Occasionally I get comments from folks that make these types of suppositions on things like forest management and food system in general. They seem to believe that because they drive an electric car and eat tofu, that somehow they get a free ride. Well, I'm here to tell you that just ain't the case. I guess what it all boils down to is energy. Where does it come from and what's it cost? Not so much in terms of dollars and cents, but in the environmental cost. Uninformed folks like to condemn me for cutting down a tree or killing an animal for food, which is ironic because these are two of the least environmentally costly things you can do. Meanwhile, they're heating their home with either electricity or natural gas, both of which have environmental costs, and eating crops produced by industrial agriculture, which has very little tolerance for any other forms of life on those ag fields. But I suppose that's two-step logic, which is one step too many for most of these folks. I'm just going to cut some lumber and say the hell with it. So our little homestead up here in Idaho, we heat with wood. We'll burn somewhere between 2 and 4 cords a year, just depending on the weather. Now you might be wondering why I don't just get a wood splitter. That's a good question. Modern society seems to be preoccupied with making things easier, and I can't help but think that that's the loss overall. When things become too easy, we miss out on so much. The physical activity of splitting wood. The satisfaction that comes with watching that wood pile up and knowing that it's laid away against the cold winter months. So even if you don't own a farm, go out and do something hard. Split some wood, climb a mountain, who knows? I can almost guarantee you'll be happier for it. I know this video is a little bit of a departure from what I usually do, but I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.